Hi, I'm Hunter from Screenfeed, and in this video, we're going to talk about getting an Outlook calendar set up on a screen. We'll need a few things for this project. First thing is a screen. It can be a smart TV or a not so smart TV. It could be a projector or grouping of TVs, just some way to display your content. The second thing that we'll need is a player. Now, it could be a standalone player like this Raspberry Pi box that I have, or it could be an app on a smart TV. Just some way of playing back the content that is delivered from Screenfeed. The final thing that we'll need is calendars from Screenfeed. To get calendars from Screenfeed, go to screenfeed.com, choose Browse Apps, and then type in calendars. It'll be the first tile that appears. You can, by all means, browse through this page and get an idea of what calendars can do. We will cover that in this video. But from here, you can click subscribe now or try it out. Subscribe will directly subscribe where you'll be paying monthly for our calendar subscription. Try it out gives you a 30-day trial. And with that trial, you can do everything we talk about in this video. You do need to set up a Screenfeed account for either a subscription or a trial. Once you have your account set up, you should see your account dashboard. And in here, under Configure Feeds, there should be an option for calendars. We're going to create the Outlook connection to Screenfeed calendars, and then from Screenfeed calendars, we're going to deliver it to a software called Screenly.io. This is a content management software that works with the standalone player that I mentioned previously, and that will deliver the content and allow it to be programmed in a playlist on the screen. So to get started, we're going to click Create Feed. There are multiple delivery methods for Screenfeed feeds. Primarily, we will be choosing HTML for this video. There are other delivery methods like Media RSS, Direct URL, XML, JSON. For this instance, we'll be using HTML. There are advantages to the others, but HTML is what we're going with today. Now, the screen behind me is landscape. So I'm going to choose a landscape for my shape. Calendars does work in conjunction with other media items to be presented using a CMS as a footer, as a sidebar alongside other content, or in a vertical or portrait shape. You pick a style, light or dark. In this case, I'm going to choose dark. And then you have the option to pick one calendar view. Now, of the calendar views, they each have their own idiosyncrasies and things that you may want out of your calendar being displayed. And the first one is agenda. Now this just shows a list of what's happening today. If you have a lot of things happening in one day, that might be the one you want to choose. Day is really good if you have multiple events that stack on top of each other. Say you have an all-day event and then other meetings that are all aligned very closely. You can even see in this tile, it displays that on a horizontal view with stacked events. And it's smart enough to know that it should scroll vertically so that you can see multiple events if you do have a lot. It's all happening at one time. Event shows you the next upcoming event on the calendar, and if there is a following one, it will show that on a rolling basis. And week displays your week, or 3 weeks ahead, but we'll get into that in just a bit. I'm going to choose week, and then if I scroll down to add my own calendar, I'm going to click Add a New Calendar. From here, it's going to ask who my data provider is. We're going to choose Microsoft Calendar. I know I've been saying Outlook a lot, but ultimately they change the name every so often. There's a little O there. So Microsoft Calendar is your Outlook calendar. We're going to choose Sign in with Microsoft. This creates the connection to your calendar, and you need to approve it. Type in your email that has view access to that Outlook calendar, and then type in your password. when you sign in, it will pull in the calendars that you have read access to. So I see my calendar as calendar, but I'm also subscribed to birthdays, a couple football teams, it looks like, holidays in the US, and my coworker Reese's calendar. So if I wanted to show Reese's calendar on the screen, I could. In this case, I'm just going to choose calendar and save selection. Now I can configure how the calendar looks. So I have various colors that I can adjust in this dark mode and try to match maybe my corporate identity as much as possible. I have choice of text. I can hide and show various elements, and each view has its own configuration options. For example, week has this time frame slider. So I see I can just show 1 day, or I can show 7 day. I also can choose whether or not I want weeks in the future. So I want to see 3 weeks ahead, for example. And then I can adjust the title. So if I switch to custom, I can type in my calendar, and you can see up in the top left corner, it says my calendar or whatever message I want to put in there. The last thing I want to point out here is there's a fallback message. Now this is if, for whatever reason, my calendar is showing 0 events for the week. It will show there are no events currently scheduled. Have a great day. I can change this to whatever message I want to show. But once again, this will only show if there's no events for the given time period for the view. And finally, I can upload a logo. So I can either click and drag or browse. And let's see if I can find my blue logo there. Let's see, uploaded right there, and you'll see it in the corner. Now, because I have a dark theme, white background for my logo, blue logo, I think I'm gonna hide the logo background. So you can see right here, it kind of shows the transparency instead of having a white background for the logo. If I scroll down even further, I can pick my language. Now, this does not translate the details of your events, only the calendar specific items. So if I didn't have a custom title, the word calendar would be in the language that I choose. Same thing with the abbreviations for days, and that kind of stuff. And my time zone. Now I'm gonna name my feed, my calendar, and click create feed. Now, because I chose HTML, I can preview this in my browser. So I'm gonna click copy URL, hit the plus, add a little tab, and now you can see this is what my calendar is gonna look like when it's on my TV. Now that I have this URL, I can start to get to scheduling it and setting up the player. So before we get into the software and getting things published to the screen, let's take a look at setting up a player for Screenly.io.
All right, now we're gonna set up our player. The first thing is this is a Raspberry Pi that I built inside an enclosure from CanaKit. They're one of many enclosure software, and here's the Raspberry Pi. Now this is something that you'll see with the Screenly player itself as well, is that it will have an enclosure. Inside will be that same board for their introductory player. I believe the Pro player is more like a PC. But the ports will be the same. So even if you're not building it yourself, this will be the same. Now the other thing that you'll need to do is I have a micro SD card here, and that will have to be formatted, and the software for Screenly needs to be put on this micro SD card. If you buy the player from Screenly, once again, you won't have to do this process, but you'll need to plug this into a computer. Usually they come with a larger SD card adapter that you can use to plug into a SD card slot, or you can get USB adapters that work very well. And then there's a process that they have on their support site that allows you to put the software on this specifically for this build, the Raspberry Pi. This one's a 4B. So I'm going to take that and plug it into the player. Maybe. There we go. Make sure it's all the way in. And then let's take a look at the ports. So there's USB ports, and those are for various controls, but we're going to want to plug into the network. Some of these have Wi-Fi enabled. Mine doesn't. And then we'll flip it over, and you can see we've got a couple ports here. Now we have USB-C, which is power. So the next thing we're going to do, is plug in the power. So I've got power cable right here, and here's my USB-C. It's going to go right into the power. The next port over is going to be out to our display, and this uses a micro HDMI, which for reference looks like that. It will come in the box with either your kit or the Screenfeed player. Now note that micro HDMI and mini USB look awful similar. So for comparison, here's a micro USB. So micro USB, mini USB, micro HDMI. These two you don't need, but man, do they look very similar. So the best way to know you have the right cable, if you have just a mass of cables, because you don't need those other ones, is to look for the HDMI at the other end. So we're going to take this and plug it in. Now we've got power, we've got our out to the TV, and we've got our network. And that's what we need to get this player set up and going. Oh yeah, last piece. Let's plug the HDMI into the TV.
You've got the player connected, you've got your feed and your Outlook calendar partway. Now we just have to take the player and put a content management software on it so that we can get the feed and push it to the TV. If you have a Screenfeed player, you do not need to do this part at all. You'll see something like this when you boot your player. But if you have built it yourself using Raspberry Pi, you'll want your little micro SD card handy. You'll have to use some sort of adapter, a USB adapter or an SD card adapter, whatever your computer takes. Get that plugged into your computer so you can image the software onto the disk. Go to Screenfeed.io. Now, either if you have a player or you built a player, this is a good step to take. Click on Sign In. If you've already set up your account, if not, start a trial. Get an idea of this is what it will look like with no players adopted. If you go over to the right and choose on screens, there's the option to add a screen. From here, there's a lot of good advice as to whether you should buy or make your own, what type of player you want. Now, the one that we're looking at is similar to their intro player using a Raspberry Pi, but they do have a more professional grade player. Calendars does not require it. If I go down to the bottom though, I can see this is more information on how I self-build my player. So the steps to do that are download the image. So I have a Raspberry Pi 4B. I'm going to choose the Raspberry Pi 4 image. And it also has good information like step-by-step instructions here, where I can click on this link and read all about hardware, suggested disks, suggested enclosures, a lot of good information there from Screenfeed. Once that's downloaded, I will need to use an imager to put that image on the disk. The one that I prefer to use is called Raspberry Pi Imager. Now you could use something like Balena Etcher. There are a bunch of them out there. In this case, we're going to choose our model of Raspberry Pi. I have a Raspberry Pi 4. I'm going to choose the OS. In this case, I'm going to use a custom operating system. And I'm going to choose my image I just downloaded. Next, I choose my storage device. I don't have mine plugged in right now, but you would choose your SD card that's plugged into your disk image that's plugged into your computer. Then you would hit next. It would go through a process of unzipping that image and putting it onto the disk. Once that says it's complete, you will have your SD card ready, your micro SD card, and you'll want to put it into your player. When that player boots up, or if you bought a Screenfeed player, you'll see something like this. It's got a pin, a QR code. We're going to use the pin and adopt this player into your account. So take that pin on that same page where we were adding a new device. There's a pin code option. we can just type in the pin code. Don't worry about putting the dash in, it will do it for you. And give it a name. When I click add, it's going to adopt that in. And when it does, that player gets put into a playlist automatically for playback. See, it says added. Now, if I go over to playlists, you'll see there's a playlist called Play on All Screens. By default, this is something that Screenfeed does for every player. And so what it will do is synchronize that player with this content. So when we look at publishing our calendar to the screen, we're going to put it in this playlist. All right, now that we've got our player set up and connected with Screenfeed, we are going to finalize this. Let's publish the content to the TV. So firstly, here's Screenfeed.io. We're back at that screens page. We're going to navigate to the content page. We're going to flip back over to Screenfeed. If you have that open as a tab, great. If not, go to account.screenfeed.com or go to Screenfeed, go to login, and from your dashboard, find configure feeds or feeds. From there, under calendar, you should be able to find your calendar feed that you've created. You click and copy that URL, switch back to Screenfeed, that tab or window, and click new content. From here, it asks if you want to upload to a certain folder. We're going to choose URL because that's what we're going to be entering in from Screenfeed. Paste it in and hit finish. This adds that URL as a piece of media that can be put into a playlist. And we're going to name that piece of media, in this case, My Calendar. Sounds like a good name. And we're going to hit save. Now it's added as a piece of media. You can do things like affect the duration and some other things when we get to putting it into the playlist. So on the left, in Screenfeed, we're going to choose playlist. We're going to choose our default playlist, which is play on all screens. Remember, this is applied to every device that's initially enrolled. You may want to create a new playlist and assign it to the screen. And so by all means, you can do that in Screenfeed. I'm just going to put it in this default playlist so you can see how scheduling works. If I scroll down to the bottom, I'm going to hit this plus next to content, and we're going to choose My Calendar right there. So now that we've added it, there are some controls that you have, for example, setting the duration. And Screenfeed can handle multiple types of media as well as multiple feeds. So if you want your calendar, and then you want weather, and then you want sports, and then you want news, Screenfeed can provide all that for you. But for this purpose, we're just going to get the calendar up on the screen. So we'll hit save, and that should be it. Now we just have to wait for the player to synchronize with Screenfeed and get that calendar syncing and installing and running on that screen. So there we have it. We have our Outlook calendar set up on a screen. And one of the nice things about this is it's built for digital signage, which means that if there's more events on a specific day or in a given time frame than can fit on the screen, it will automatically scroll through that information so that everything can be seen from your calendar. It's not just copy and paste of what you've got in your Outlook calendar where it might overflow the frame or something. Beyond that, it also is really nice because the feed itself, the URL, stays the same. So if I go into my feed and make changes, I can select it. Let's choose light and agenda, adjust the view. I can even switch it to a different calendar. And when I hit update, as soon as the Screenfeed player updates, I can see those changes actualized. I don't need to go through the process of ingesting the content in Screenfeed and pushing it out again. I can just wait, and all the configuration changes I made will show up on my screen. So that's it. We're all set. We have Outlook now on a screen. We'll have other videos like this coming out that take projects from the very start to playing and presenting on a screen. And thank you for watching. If you're interested in Screenfeed, go to screenfeed.io. Check them out. They have demos and free trials. Screenfeed.com has free trials of the calendar app, or if you want, just go ahead and buy it. You can go through this entire video on a trial or subscription if you prefer. And once again, I'm Hunter from Screenfeed, and thanks for watching.